Hello and welcome to the August 23rd, 2026 episode of Nick's News. I am your host Nick, brought to you by Some Budget Studios. That's right, we're paying for this project of ours. We're live every Sunday and I thank you all so much for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube channel. This is a program dedicated to bringing good news to counter all of the bad news that we are bombarded with on a daily basis, with the hope of bringing a little bit of joy back to the world. Several of our articles are pulled from sites like Industry Tap, Live Science, Positive.news, and GoodGoodGood.co. But we appreciate everything sent in by you, the Nick's Newsies. Hello, everybody. So happy to have you all here with us tonight for another wonderful on-track Sunday episode of Nick's News. And we've got some fantastic good news tonight, so we will get into it. But first, we will start off with our news brew, and this is going to be a really cool one. So sometimes your beer doesn't need a catchy name, and you just want to show off what it is, like an Icelandic Toasted Porter. That's it, just Toasted Porter. This is from Einstök Ölgerð, and they wanted to show off the skills of this brew with a 6% ABV Baltic Porter. It's got what the brewery calls a Viking kick, which means it's got 1% ABV higher than your average Baltic Porter. Those usually sit at a 5. This guy's sitting at a 6. With can art like that, though, I am very happy with this brew. Look at the can art. Just the Viking on it. That's pretty wild. So, Skål! Now, for this brew, we have a Baltic Porter. So what do you drink a Baltic Porter in? So Baltic Porters, you want to get a pint glass, but not just any pint glass. So this is a nonic pint glass. Pint glasses that kind of have this interesting change of diameter to them can sometimes help with the nose of the beer, as well as bring out some of the flavors. So the recommended glass for Baltic Porters, or just porters in general, is the nonic pint glass. And we're going to enjoy this one. It's my Sam Adams nonic pint glass. And we don't need the Battle Song bottle openers because it's a can, so we'll just blow the gain on the audio. Oh yeah, that went into the red. And we'll get into the theatrics of a 5-minute pour. I love on the back that the quote is, "Take pride in your beer." So, I know I do. Whew. Look at the layering of that head. Things that'll get clipped. A lot of carbonation that we want to get out of the beer because we don't want it in us. But I absolutely love that layering effect that you can kind of see down at the bottom of the glass. I love the way it just curls and yields more of the liquid that we will be enjoying. So really a cool effect. Get a little bit more in there and we'll let it start to fill up. While it's coming down just a tiny bit, we will get into our shout-outs. So, did you know that I'm part of a podcast team? Check out DAINIME, the Daikaiju and Anime Podcast. T and friends, such as myself, will discuss, review, and reflect on giant monsters and Japanese animation. If you love kaiju movies and anime as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. Links are down in the description of the video if you want to check out DAINIME, the Daikaiju and Anime Podcast. To T, who started it all, and to everybody involved with the project, cheers. That is a tasty porter. Ooh. There's a little something something at the end there. A lot of chocolate, like dark baker's chocolate and dark chocolate and coffee. But there's like some sort of almost like a stone fruit, like something plum at the end. Ooh, I am liking that. Good job, Einstök Ölgerð. News quote: "The people who influence you are the people who believe in you. I really like that quote. It's from Henry Drummond, who lived from 1851 to 1897 and was a Scottish evangelist, a biologist, a writer, and a lecturer. And I really like that quote because we can lose track of, or it can be weird to figure out what kind of effect people have on you and what kind of effect you're having on the people around you. Is something about having people that you look up to and people that can affect the way that you are for positives. Teaching you about things you didn't know, education, walking in their footsteps, in the footsteps of these people. And I really like that when you think about it, those people who are actively working to help you be the best version of you, those are the same people that believe you can be the best version of you. And they're just, in their experience, they're offering that, what they have, knowledge and experience and time, to help you get there too. So the people who influence you are the people who believe in you. I don't try to influence a lot of people, but I believe in all of you. So from Henry Drummond, cheers. Or maybe I try to influence a lot of people with good news. We'll see. There we go. We'll top off our beer. Hey, Charlie. Bug update. All the bugs are doing very well. I don't know if the mic is picking it up, but there is a cricket that's chirping somewhere behind me. It's in one of the tanks, and I hope that whichever tank it's in, it gets killed by whichever bug needs to eat it, because it is getting annoying. Everybody's doing great. Little John hasn't rejected food. I got a picture of him smashing a cricket just into his mouth. So keep an eye on the Instagram for that. So that means that he's not necessarily in pre-molt. He's just a little big right now. So we might cut back on feeding a little bit and keep an eye on him, see if he's getting ready to molt and get to be a bit bigger. Elmira's been great. She hasn't done a lot of terraforming in a while. I think she's pretty happy with how she has completely destroyed the home that I set up for her and made it in her image, a complete and total wreck. But hey, we love her for it, so no problems there. Sue, our big Asian forest scorpion, has been out of the hide a little bit more, so I got some great photos of him. Expect to see those on our Instagram as well. Everything is doing very well in the bug world, so it's all good. Okay, so let's get into our good news. And our good news, is broken up into 4 major categories, and those categories are science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, and wholesome notes, the really nice touchy-feely articles that we like to end with. I think we have an update too. I don't see it in the write-up. Producer Donna, if you could add that update that you were talking about earlier back to the write-up, so that I can go over it when we get to that section, that would be greatly appreciated. But that section is in the future. We're going to get into category 1, science and technology. We've got 2 articles in here for you, and the first one we called, Let Me Spin You a Yarn About Engineers. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. All the links to these articles are in the description of our video, and I highly recommend that you check them out too. Give them the foot traffic or the views that they deserve, because they do a ton of work to write these articles, to look up the information regarding them, look up the facts, and get them posted in a version that we all like. And it's really admirable work finding good news. So, also, if you have a chance before I start reading, please, if you would be so kind, hit that like button or subscribe or make a comment about what you like about our content or what we could do better. We are all for constructive criticism, and all of that interaction with our content is what drives us into the algorithm. So any and every interaction with our content is greatly appreciated. Likes, shares, subscribes, comments, everything that gets us into the algorithm, however it works, and continues to push good news. So thank you all for that. Now we'll get into the article. MIT engineers design recyclable elastic yarn. Melt it, spin it, use it again. This new recyclable yarn is as strong and stretchy as spandex-based yarns. This was published on July 27th of 2026 to MIT News by Jennifer Chu. After a closet cleanout, what options are there for recycling our old threads? Not many. Apart from bringing used clothes to a donation center, there is no process for recycling textiles like there is for bottles and cans. And the average American throws out around 81 pounds of clothing each year. That amounts to more than 11 million tons of textiles that end up in the landfill or an incinerator. But MIT engineers, some of y'all, if you're playing the drinking game, are going to get really screwed up by this article, hope to cut down on the growing mountain of textile waste with a new recyclable yarn. The team has designed a yarn made from a form of plastic that is commonly used in milk bottles and grocery bags. The new yarn, which has a feel similar to traditional sewing thread, can be woven into stretchy, lightweight clothing. The researchers say that at the end of its use, a yarn-spun garment could be melted down and redrawn into new yarn, and then woven into new clothing or even cast into buttons, belt buckles, and other plastic accessories. To demonstrate the yarn's recyclability, the researchers spun a spool of yarn, melted the yarn down, and respun it into new yarn, multiple times. They found that even after 10 cycles of this, the yarn was as strong and flexible as conventional thread. So even going over and over and over with this process, it's still a viable product. That's awesome. They envision the new yarn could be an alternative to elastic spandex polyester or spandex nylon yarns, which are spun from a combination of fibers that cannot be recycled together. The team's new yarn, in contrast, is made from a specific combination of plastic materials that mimics the tough and stretchy properties of spandex yarns, while also being easily recycled. 80% of textiles on the US market currently contain some amount of spandex, which makes them non-recyclable, says Svetlana Boriskina, a research scientist in MIT's Department of Mechanical, say it with me, Engineering. There's no widely adopted technology now that recycles textiles into textiles. With our new yarn, we hope to change that. Boriskini and her colleagues have published the details of the new yarn in a study published in the journal ACS Materials Letters. MIT co-authors include first author Seong-hyun Kim, Duo Zhu, Volodymyr Korolovich, Domingo Flores Hernandez, Canis Morium, and Daniel Braconnier. Spandex is a polyurethane-based synthetic fiber that is springy but not very strong. A thread of an elastic yarn is made from two parts: a spandex-based core, surrounded by a sheath of tough polyester or nylon. The combination of these materials gives elastic yarns their unique stretch and strength. But this same material mixture makes elastic yarns nearly impossible to recycle. Yarns would first have to be chemically treated to separate the polyester sheath from the spandex core. The polyester-based sheath material could then be melted down and reused, but there is no way to recycle the yarn as a whole without chemical separation. Even though chemical separation technologies exist, they add extra cost and complexity, and usually require toxic chemicals that are harmful to the environment, Boriskina says. That's why most stretchy garments go to the dump. In 2021, Boriskina's group developed a new type of yarn made from polyethylene. Polyethylene is the most common type of plastic in the world, used to make everything from grocery bags, water bottles, trash bins, and toys to industrial pipes and plastic sheeting. Polyethylene is a thermoplastic, meaning that it can be melted down and remade, and thus recycled. And yet, polyethylene had never really been considered as a textile. In their previous work, Boriskina and her colleagues showed that they could spin yarn out of polyethylene, which they then wove into various garments. In those experiments, they focused on the yarn's moisture wicking, stain resisting, and cooling properties. In their new study, the group aimed to tailor polyethylene yarn to mimic the strength and flexibility of spandex. They also sought to demonstrate the yarn's recyclability. They first looked for formulations of stretchy polyethylene based copolymers and that resemble a spandex elastic core. Separately, they engineered polyethylene yarns that can act as the sturdier sheath. Looking through the scientific literature and combing through industrial reports, the team evaluated many chemical variations of polyethylene. The chemical structure of polyethylene is like a Christmas garland, a backbone of carbon, 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 and also these dangling decorations of hydrogen atoms or short branches with the same structure as a backbone, Boriskina explained. How these chains are arranged can change the properties of the whole structure. Polyethylene can give us a wide range of properties depending on how you make it, adds first author Seong-hyun Kim. For the yarn's core, the team used one polyethylene-based resin that results in a more stretchy fiber. They chose a second, stiffer resin as the basis for the yarn's sheath. The researchers obtained pellets of each resin from a chemical manufacturer and then put each of the pellets through a process of fiber fabrication, first pouring them into a hopper, then heating the pellets to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, past their melting temperature. The melted polyethylene was then drawn through small extruders to make hair-thin fibers. You just melt it in a barrel with a heater, and then you extrude it and spin it into fibers, Kim says. It's like a spaghetti machine. The team used an industrial yarn spinner to wind the sheath fibers around a core fiber to make the final elastic yarn. Because both the yarn's core and sheath come from the same chemical family of polyethylene, Boriskina says the materials do not have to be separated before recycling, in contrast to spandex-based elastic yarns as discussed earlier. The new yarn can be melted as is and reformed into new yarn or other plastic products. Because they are exactly the same chemistry, they play nicely together, she says. That's what makes this yarn recyclable. As a demonstration, the team twisted an elastic core sheath yarn, then melted it and respun it 10 times. Each time, they tested its mechanical properties by precisely stretching a thread and measuring the pulling force at which the thread eventually broke. From these tests, they found that the yarn's recycled versions were just as strong as the original sheath yarn. The recycled yarns could now be used to make stretchy yarns by twisting them around a newly spun elastic core. Or they can make new stretchy yarns. There's a typo there. Now we have something that can be knitted and woven, Boriskina says. That is the next stage. The team says their new recipe for polyethylene yarn can be scaled up into industrial-sized spools. Just like conventional spandex fibers, it would take kilometers of yarn to weave a single textile. But once woven and used, the team envisions that a polyethylene garment could conceivably be dropped in a recycling bin and sent to a facility to be melted down and respun, enabling a more sustainable, circular fashion and textile economy. Hopefully, it will prevent the need for making more and more textile materials because you can keep recycling a large portion of it, Boriskina said. This work was supported in part by the DevCom Soldier Center through the U.S. Army Research Office, the Office of Naval Research Global via Tecnológico de Monterrey, and the MIT Portugal program. That is awesome! To everybody who has created a new stretchy yarn out of polyethylene, the same stuff that we make like grocery bags out of. And it can be recycled. Cheers. Really fascinating stuff. This next one we called A Different Kind of Plug and Play. And I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this one out. Minnesota just plugged a 710 megawatt solar farm into a coal plant that once burned 30,000 tons a day. The two sharing wires until the last boiler dies in 2030, and one retired coal unit will keep spinning, fuel-free, to steady the solar that replaced it. This was published on July 29th of 2026 to AutoNation, by Louis Reyes. America is retiring coal plants at a steady clip, and there is no real aftermarket for the leftovers. The boilers get cut up for scrap, the smokestacks get dropped on camera, and the land tends to sit in permitting limbo for a decade. In Becker, Minnesota, however, the most valuable thing at the state's biggest coal plant turned out to be none of that hardware. It was the plug. On July 21st, Xcel Energy announced it had completed the third phase of Sherco Solar, pushing the site to 710 megawatts generated by 1.7 million panels. That makes it the largest solar facility in Minnesota and one of the biggest in the upper Midwest by the utility's own careful scoping. The capacity number is respectable. The interesting part is where those panels connect. Sherco Solar feeds the grid through the transmission infrastructure and interconnection rights of the Sherburne County Generating Station, the coal giant next door that has been pushing power into the same wires since 1976. Borrowing that connection let 710 megawatts of solar walk past the single worst line in American energy. A new power plant that wants onto the U.S. transmission grid has to join an interconnection queue. It's basically a line, where grid operators study what upgrades the system needs before anything can get energized. According to Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory's latest count, published July 1st, some 2,061 gigawatts of power of proposed generation and storage is sitting in this line. That is more capacity than every energy power plant currently operating in the country combined. That is an insane amount of power that is just waiting for red tape. The line moves about how you would expect a 2,000 gigawatt line to move. The median project takes roughly 5 years to get from request to operation, and the backlog peaked near 2,600 gigawatts at the end of 2023 before easing a little. Sherco Solar mostly sidestepped it. The Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which runs the grid across the middle of the country, gives the owner of a retiring plant 3 years to reuse its interconnection rights for a replacement resource. Those rights cannot be sold to anyone else, so they are strictly use it or lose it. Xcel used it. The nonprofit RMI estimates that this generator replacement route can cut connection time from that 5-year average to under a year, which in this business counts as overnight shipping. So yeah, 5 years of waiting to get your power on the grid to less than a year. Rob Gramlich, CEO of the consulting firm Grid Strategies, put it more bluntly when CNN visited the site in 2024, saying, "Somebody just has this Disney pass to skip the line." He also called queue jumping a sensitive topic in the industry, which tells you exactly how the other 2,000 gigawatts feel about it. Transmission is a scarce asset underneath all of this. There is rarely a spare line sitting around anywhere on a modern grid, which is why Tasmania is currently rebuilding 287 towers on a corridor it is not allowed to switch off. A live connection with real capacity behind it is close to priceless, and a retiring coal plant has exactly that. The build itself moved quickly by American standards. First, power flowed in late October 2024 at more than 220 megawatts. A second phase followed through 2025, and the 250 megawatt third phase wrapped this month. All in, the site now spreads across thousands of acres of farm country around Becker and Clear Lake, and it produces enough electricity for roughly 150,000 homes on Xcel's upper Midwest system. Jeez, that's a ton of homes. Xcel handles the groundskeeping with sheep, which graze beneath the arrays so nobody has to mow 1.7 million panels worth of grass. There's a Great Pyrenees named Ozzy on the payroll to guard them. Solar sites keep finding second jobs for their land like this, the way Arizona farms are growing crops in the shade of raised panels. Every module out there is also on a 25 to 30 year clock, which is its own looming industrial story. The recycling side of that business just switched on in a big way in Georgia, where a new plant strips retired panels down to their silver, copper, and glass. Bria Shea, Excel's president for Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, said in the announcement that the project shows how the company can build upon existing infrastructure and workforce expertise, while demand keeps climbing. Which is the polite version of what Gramlich said. While all of this happened, the Sherburne County Generating Station kept burning coal, because it is not finished doing so. Units 1 and 2 came online in 1976 and 1977 as a matched pair designed to run together, with Unit 3 following in 1987, and together they gave the plant a nameplate capacity of 2,238 megawatts. The scale of the old machine is worth pausing on. In its prime, it burned about 30,000 tons of coal a day, delivered 3 train loads at a time, and emptied by a rotary dumper that flips a full rail car upside down every 3 minutes. Each boiler stands more than 200 feet tall, higher than the dome of the Minnesota State Capitol. These are enormous pieces of construction, eating tons of coal per day. This is wild. The 680 megawatt Unit 2 shut down for good on New Year's Eve of 2023. Unit 1 is scheduled to follow before the end of this year, and the final unit runs until 2030. So for the next few years, the same substation will be moving coal power and solar power at once, which is either poetic or awkward depending on which control room you sit in. Retirement does not mean the old hardware stops working entirely either. One of the retiring units is being converted into a synchronous condenser, a huge spinning mass that steadies grid voltage without burning any. Part of the coal plant will keep clocking in to smooth out the solar farm that replaced it, so jobs aren't being lost. Or at least a large number hopefully are not, because the plant still needs to run. The site is also getting a battery unlike the ones you usually read about. Form Energy is building an iron-air system there rated at 10 megawatts and 1,000 megawatt hours, which works out to 100 hours of storage against the 4 hours of typical lithium-ion grid battery manages. It is meant for the multi-day gray stretches that make solar-heavy grids nervous, and the chemistry is essentially reversible rusting. That's cool. Excel is not done with the plug. A proposed fourth phase would add 200 megawatts by 2029, lifting the site to 910 megawatts, enough for more than 190,000 homes. The company pegs the expansion at roughly 300 union construction jobs and $90 million in local economic benefits. Larger battery installations are planned around the site as well, and Excel says those would ride the same existing grid connections. None of it is a done deal yet, since Phase 4 still needs a green light from Minnesota regulators. There is a hard limit on this trick. It only works where a large fossil plant is retiring with its interconnection rights intact, inside that 3-year window, with somebody ready to build on the spot. Everyone else is still standing in the 2061 gigawatt line. But if you happen to own a dying coal titan, the arithmetic is settled. The boiler is scrap value, the turbine hull is square footage, and the connection out back is the asset the whole industry is lining up for. Sherco spent 50 years making Becker a power town. Its wires just got hired for the next 50. That is amazing. To everybody involved with Xcel Energy and the Sherco solar field, plugging into an existing power plant that is getting sunsetted so that it can continue to provide power to 150,000 homes and more in the future. Cheers. That is really neat. All right. That is going to get us out of science and technology. We're going to move on to category 2, health and medicine. We've got one article in here tonight in this section, and we called it Covering All the Bases. And I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. Oh, hi, Elmira. I really do need to put a bug cam up. I need to take like my old webcam and like get a stand behind me and it just like pans back and forth or it looks for motion because Elmira's like right here in the tank that is not in focus. And she is impressive. So keep an eye on her Instagram. There's going to be some photos of her coming up. US FDA approves first mRNA flu shot from Moderna. This was published on August 6th of 2026 to CBA Canada News by John McFarlane. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved Moderna's mRNA-based flu vaccine for people aged 50 and older, a complete reversal from an earlier refusal to review the shot. The approval clears the way for the vaccine to be available in the U.S., likely next year, but won't affect a separate, ongoing Health Canada review of Moderna's application for approval of the same vaccine in Canada. Nonetheless, healthcare experts in Canada welcomed the development. The reason I think this is exceptionally good news is because the mRNA vaccines seem to be very protective of people who are older, with comorbidities, and people who are immunocompromised, said Dawn Bodish, an immunologist and professor in the Department of Medicine at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. The FDA approval was based on data from a late-stage trial involving more than 40,000 adults aged 50 and older, which showed the shot was 26.6% more effective than existing standard-dose flu vaccines. That's highly meaningful for a fast-evolving respiratory disease that can be deadly to vulnerable groups such as infants or older adults, said Jason Kindrachuk, an associate professor of medical microbiology and infectious diseases at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg and the Canada Research Chair on Emerging Viruses. Something to think about when you look at the flu virus is that we kind of are spitballing which one is going to be the dominant one, and that's how we design what our vaccine is going to be for it, and those things take time to generate, as we'll get into. Something that is more efficacious is obviously going to decrease not only the toll on people's health, but also the toll on hospitals and healthcare clinics across the country and certainly across the globe, which I think is a big consideration, Kindrachuk said. The public can be very dismissive of the impact of influenza, Kindrachuk said, but the virus kills tens of thousands of people in the US every year and thousands in Canada. So having something that's available, or at least an additional armament in the cupboard, to be able to provide protection against something we know is going to have a public impact on an ongoing basis, that to me is critical. The shot, Mflusiva, was given a traditional approval by the FDA for adults aged 50 to 64, and an accelerated approval for those 65 years and older. Moderna has agreed to run an additional study and submit more data in adults 65 and older to confirm the vaccine's benefits in that age group. 65 and older. Wonder why. Health experts say higher overall effectiveness, coupled with the potential for a shorter manufacturing timeline, could be game changers in fighting the flu. Traditional flu vaccines, here's the really cool thing about this. Traditional flu vaccines are typically grown in chicken eggs, with their specific makeup determined months ahead of flu season by the World Health Organization panel, effectively trying to guess which flu strain will be the most prominent by the time the growing process is complete. Messenger-based RNA vaccines, however, like we saw with the COVID-19 pandemic, give our cells instructions on how to build a piece of a virus protein that's harmless on its own, but then it allows the immune system to take a look at it and build defenses against the active virus should it come into your system. They can also be manufactured more quickly, said McMaster's Bodish, which should give us more adaptability to adapt to new strains as it becomes apparent which ones will affect the Northern Hemisphere. Scientists accelerated efforts around mRNA research with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, with reviews showing the billions of doses given worldwide were safe and effective, boosting efforts to use the technology against other diseases, including cancer, and influenza. Earlier that week, Health Canada authorized a clinical trial for the mRNA vaccine to fight the Bundibugyo form of the Ebola virus, currently raging in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Holy crap, so we're using mRNA vaccines to fight Ebola as well. The modern mRNA approval comes amid ongoing upheaval within the U.S. administration around vaccines. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been critical of vaccines, particularly those using mRNA technology, and scrutiny of vaccines at the FDA has increased since he took the role. Moderna's application to the FDA for Mflusiva was refused in early February, and then accepted for review a week later after Moderna made modifications to the application. In 2025, Moderna also withdrew an application for a combo COVID flu shot after the agency sought additional evidence demonstrating the effectiveness of its flu counterpart. Former FDA Commissioner Marty Makary and former vaccine chief Vinay Prasad were forced to resign earlier this year amid controversies over vaccine and rare disease drug reviews, including Moderna's flu vaccine application. Acting Commissioner Kyle Diamantis has since sought to steady the agency and rebuild industry confidence. Good luck to you, Kyle. It is awesome, though, to see that we are moving forward with mRNA vaccines, which have proven their efficiency at helping the immune system learn about things to lessen the blow should you get that virus. So, to everybody involved with moving Mflusiva forward to protect people above the age of 50 from the flu. Cheers. For a moment, I thought I saw a different scorpion out. All right, that's going to get us out of health and medicine. We're going to move on to category 3, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals. We've got 2 articles in here, and our first one is glass half full for beaches that are half empty. And this is a follow-up because we covered glasses half full a couple years ago when they were just starting up and they were a backyard operation. So it's so cool to once again be talking about them. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this article out. From Mardi Gras to marsh, glass half full turns party glass into Louisiana coastline. This was published on the 16th of July, 2026, to Manga Bay by Liz Kimbrough. On a cold Saturday in late January, a parade float, there's a typo right off the bat, rolls down Royal Street, painted with the image of the Louisiana coastline eroding away. The next float displays Lady Liberty gagged and locked behind a chain-link fence. This is Crew de View, the raunchy, mule-drawn satirical parade that has rolled through New Orleans' French Quarter for 40 years, making political jokes few others dare to make in public. Its 2026 theme is Save the Wet Glands, a play on Save the Wetlands. This year's Crew de View queen is Franziska Troutman, the pink-haired co-founder and CEO of Glass Half Full, a business that takes the city's glass bottles and turns them into sand, used to rebuild Louisiana's dwindling coast. Growing up here, the coastal erosion crisis is like the boogeyman. Troutman told me outside the glass half. Troutman told the author, Liz Kimbrough. Lost my spot. There it is. Growing up here, the coastal erosion crisis is like the boogeyman. Troutman told Liz outside the Glass Half Full facility in Chalmette, Louisiana. It's this overwhelming thing looming in the distance. Crew de Vue is a satirical parade that has rolled through New Orleans for 40 years. It's pretty crazy to look at some of this stuff. Most locals have heard the statistics. Roughly a football field of Louisiana is lost to the sea every hour. Large areas of grassy marshes and tree-laden swamps that once knit the coast together have succumbed to erosion after more than a century of being sliced apart by roads, oil pipelines, and canals. Reduced sediment flow from the Mississippi River brings less would-be land down south. Also, the land is sinking, and the sea is rising. Not the best combination to be dealing with. But in New Orleans, where tragedy and joy are often held in the same cup, Crew de Vue is parading about it. On the parade route, a reveler with a bushy black mustache peers through the face hole of a big yellow star costume. The star raises its Miller High Life bottle and shouts, "Woo!" as a brass band thumps by. Later, it tosses the bottle in a plastic bin outside Anna's bar. By Tuesday morning, the glass bottle is in a box truck headed just a few kilometers east to Chalmette, home to the Glass Half Full recycling plant. Glass Half Full started back in 2020. Buffer. It's buffering? Anybody else see buffering right now? I am not seeing any disruptions. Stream health is saying it's healthy. Anyone other than Donna experiencing a buffer issue? Elmira, are you experiencing a buffer issue? Crickets. I'm hoping that nobody else is experiencing a buffer issue. Maybe everybody's experiencing a buffer issue because nobody is saying anything. Nope. Dirty Rogue is saying everything is good here. Thank you, Dirty Rogue. Glass Half Full started in 2020 in a backyard near Tulane University when Troutman and her classmate, Max Stites, couldn't figure out where to recycle their wine bottles. The 20-somethings' pipe dreams are now a full-scale operation atop a 3-acre or 1.2-hectare plant just outside of New Orleans. JHF's partner, Glassroots, runs about 40 locations citywide where people can drop off their household glass. Additionally, dozens of restaurants and bars in town have dedicated glass bins with multiple weekly pickups. In 2024 alone, we went through 500,000 pounds of glass, about 227 metric tons, which is quite a bit. Bryce Abity, general manager of the famed Carousel Bar at the Hotel Manteleon in New Orleans, told Business Insider. The bar is one of GHF's largest glass suppliers. I don't think anybody truly comprehends the amount of garbage in glassware and other things that end up in landfills until, you start separating it and seeing it for yourself. Once the glass reaches the Chalmette facility, it's stored in piles until process days, which occur about 3 times a week. Heavy machinery moves large scoops of glass into a hopper, which crushes the glass and moves it down a conveyor belt. Workers pull out anything that isn't glass. Past the human inspection, optical sorters separate the glass shards by color and pluck out contaminants, like labels. Larger pieces, called coulee, are collected in a rail car. When the rail car is full, about once a month, it's hauled by a train to Anchor Glass Container in Oklahoma and melted down into recycled glass bottles. Glass shards that are too small to be coulee go through a pulverizer that grind them into a fine 100% silica sand, soft enough to rub up against your skin without cutting it. Since its inception, GHF has recycled 14 million pounds, or 6,350 metric tons of glass, including more than 2 million pounds, or 907 metric tons this year, Troutman said in a call in July. The plant receives 9 trucks a day, bringing glass from up to 225 kilometers, or 140 miles, away in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. GHF has the capacity to process more glass, but collection is the bottleneck. "We need more glass," Troutman says to a crew of volunteers gathered at the GHF facility on a sunny Saturday in March, her back to a small mountain of sand glass. The group has gathered to plant native species, bald cypress and water tupelo trees, giant bulrush, bulltongue, and irises, on 2 small islands built with glass, some of the newest land on the planet. The Glass Half Full facility sits on the edge of Bayou Bienvenue, atop a former illegal dumping ground. The area used to host a lush swamp until a shipping channel was cut and the area became flooded with seawater in the 1960s. Just offshore, a few meters down a boardwalk, are 4 small islands. Each is 25 feet or 7.6 meters across. These baby islands are a grand experiment, and they're doing really well. Kat Fogg, project manager for Recoast Glass Half Full's restoration arm, told Liz. The first 2 islands, closer to the shore, were built in 2024. One is made of pure Mississippi River dredge, the sediment that's pulled up from the bottom of the river. The other is a mix of half dredge and half GHF's recycled glass sand. To build the first islands, Fogg and her team trudged out in waders with stakes and tape to mark the perimeter. Next, they hauled biodegradable choir logs made from coconut husk to erect holding containers for the sand and sludge. One was constructed by pumping a slurry of bayou water and sand into the containment perimeter, while the other was created with mechanized equipment. They let the land settle for a few weeks and then planted plants whose roots would eventually hold it in place. The second set of islands, which were built in 2025, were made with containers of metal fencing wrapped in burlap instead of choir logs, which, Fogg said, were quite unwieldy. All 4 islands are now solid ground, the older 2 covered in thick vegetation, and the newer islands freshly planted. Wildlife is already making use of the islands. Camera traps placed on the islands in 2025 have logged birds, alligators, marsh rabbits, and a river otter that used the new land as a toilet. Fogg says they're building 2 new islands in the next few months and will experiment with different holding container designs. "We're going to keep making land," she says. Wow, this article is enormous. Glass Half Full and Recoast have worked with academic collaborators to study the properties of the glass sand and its sustainability for restoration. Jeez, I'm getting all twisted up. The resulting peer-reviewed publications report that the glass sand material is mostly silica, chemically inert, free of harmful leaching, and behaves like natural sand. Native estuarine fish, crabs, oysters, and barnacles survive in it. Wetland plants, dune plants, and black mangroves have grown comparably in glass sand and natural sediment in greenhouse and field trials. So this stuff works. There is great evidence that we can use recycled glass as a resource for coastal restoration. Hank Bart, a professor at Tulane University and co-author of research examining the effects of the recycled glass sand on animals, told Manga Bay in a phone call. If we can just crush and recycle enough. There's a lot more in the article, but for time's sake, I am gonna cut this one down because this is a massive article, but there is more regarding what the sand is being used for, which is basically the plan is to start to add the sand out into the bay and different areas that have lost their coast due to erosion, and basically start to replace it with this sand, with a mix of this sand. So the big thing they're running into is just getting more of it because, the transportation of glass to their crushing facility is the bottleneck. But the big goal is to roll this stuff out and start to rebuild the coastline of Louisiana using or with the help of this crushed glass. So that is really awesome. To everybody involved with this project, bringing crushed glass to restore the coastline of Louisiana. Cheers. Thank you very much, Producer Donna. We'll get to that one right after the obligatory cat article. That's right, our next one is an obligatory cat article. I'll copy and paste this so y'all can check it out. New study shows that cougars cut deadly car accidents from crossing deer by up to 76%. This was published on August 5th of 2026 to goodgoodgood.co by Megan Cook. Researchers have found evidence that pumas, also known as cougars and mountain lions, directly affect deer behavior in a way that could prove life-saving for drivers. In the study, which published in the scientific journal Current Biology on August 5th, the researchers studied highway collisions across 5 years and found that higher puma occupancy correlated with significantly lower collision rates. Now, correlation is not causation. Let's not forget that. But having pumas around means less car accidents with deer. Interesting. We found that large carnivores can make roadways safer through their effects on prey behavior and space use, lead author Justin Suraki said in a press release. Together with his colleagues, Suraki, who serves as senior scientist and director of wildlife conservation science at Conservation Science Partners, centered his research on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, where roughly 4 big cats can be found every 100 square miles. Sorry. Deer alter their use of both space and time where pumas are present, overlapping less with roads and reducing activity at night, when some of the most dangerous collisions occur, said Suraki. In an interview with Good, Mark Elbrock, the director for Panthera's Puma program, explained that nighttime deer collisions are generally more dangerous because of a culmination of factors: driver fatigue, speed, and that classic deer in the headlights reaction that causes deer to just freeze up on roadways. It's also simply harder for drivers to see. 90% of drivers' reaction depends on sight, which loses depth perception and peripheral range in the dark, Elbrock told Good. As Suraki put it, road safety is a service that large predators like pumas can provide to human communities. It's important to remember that large carnivores, like many wildlife species, can only persist if they're able to share landscapes with people, which in many cases require us to change our behaviors and attitudes to make coexistence possible, said Suraki. When it came to the number of pumas struck by vehicles, Elbrock said it happened infrequently, but it was not unheard of. In our system, we have had several pumas killed by cars, he acquiesced. We also had one remarkable recovery. The female remained roadside for 10 days and then slowly made her recovery, ultimately returning to her usual behaviors and successfully raising kittens. Big cats in North America don't have the best reputation. People often cite concerns of attacks, but Elbrock told Good that they are few and far between. Hundreds of thousands of deer vehicle collisions occur every year, causing tens of thousands of injuries and roughly 200 deaths in the United States, he stated. As compared with 4 to 6 attacks per year in recent years, more like 1 to 2 over longer time spans, and on average, one person being killed every 3 to 5 years over the last 100 years. Elbrock said that stable puma populations, coupled with wildlife crossings, could lead to substantial benefits for drivers across the Pacific Northwest. Pumas are providing all the net benefits of wildlife bridges, which receive bipartisan support because they reduce wildlife vehicle collisions, saving lives, reducing injuries, reducing damage to public infrastructure, and saving people millions and millions of dollars, he said. By scaring deer, pumas are doing the same thing, likely everywhere they coexist with people. When it comes to the study's potential impacts on legislation or road safety, Elbrock is optimistic. We hope this influences human tolerance for wildlife, encourages management that supports coexistence, and influences transportation policy that supports wildlife coexistence with people. To the pumas for managing deer populations and keeping them from off the road at night and potentially from you running into one. Cheers. All right, the update that I was talking about earlier is another update on the beluga whales that are being moved from a belugared marine land in Niagara Falls that closed to other aquariums throughout the world. 3 more beluga whales, Cypress, Jasper, and Xavier, have made the trip to their new homes at SeaWorld in San Diego. 2 others made the trip earlier this week to Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, an aquarium I've been to that is an amazing aquarium, so that is really cool. Everyone is settling in and getting acclimated to their new homes. Of the 30 original beluga whales and 4 dolphins, only 8 whales and the 4 dolphins remain at the closed marine land in Niagara Falls, all of which are scheduled to move to their new homes by the end of this month. So I'm hoping, come our last episode of this month, or our first episode of September, that we will be able to say that all of the beluga whales and the dolphins have been successfully moved out of marine land. But that is a fantastic update. Thank you very much, Producer Donna, for getting us that one. And cheers to everybody involved moving these mammals to new homes. And with that, we will get into category 4, the wholesome notes. We've got 2 wholesome notes tonight, and the first one we called, That'll Do, Pig. That'll do. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. This crisis intervention therapy peg is helping DC's homeless. We have to think outside the box. This was published on July 27th of 2026 to goodgoodgood.co. It was by Cameron Baker. According to Washington, D.C.'s annual point-in-time count released in May of 2026, the city's homeless population has increased about 4.4% since last year. With a count of 5,363 people facing both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness, it's clear there is a need for intervention. The H3 project, the three H's in question stand for home, health, and happiness, is a grassroots nonprofit in the DC area that does outreach work across the city in an attempt to end homelessness and human trafficking. Every day, the team meets individuals where they are at, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., including on holidays. They are especially present in DC's Union Station and major downtown hubs. In 2025, the organization assisted in providing nearly 2,000 essential items to people in need, administered 217 doses of Narcan, helped 234 people apply for SNAP or Medicaid benefits, and managed 93 housing matches, according to its website. Now, H3 has a new team member supporting its outreach efforts. She's a 5-pound pig named Synergy, and she belongs to Amy M. Angel, who started the organization in 2020. We have to think outside the box, because every individual is unique, she told the Washington Post about her clients. What works for one individual may not work for another person. It's figuring out the way in, and if you can't get that door open a little, then you can get it open a lot larger. In the past, Angel used to carry around a pack of cigarettes, even though she didn't smoke herself. It was a way to start a conversation with people in need, or acts as a de-escalation tool to manage a crisis. But then her friend told her about Juliana pigs, a hypoallergenic breed of pig that is as friendly and eager to please as a service dog. A lot of folks that we work with, they've never seen a pig, let alone touched one, Angel told the Washington Post. With pigs, it doesn't matter your age, your race, your gender. They love you equally. Synergy was adopted in March, and now she comes to work with Angel every day, either training in her pen at the organization's headquarters in Union Station, or on a harness and leash on outreach duty. That little pig in a harness and leash is adorable. When she comes around, it seems like she's a magnet, H3 client Randall Baldry said in a video for the Washington Post about the little pig. Everybody wants to be around her. It helps with the emotional support. Synergy can also do tricks, like spinning in a circle, or leaping over hurdles. She can even play a toy piano. Engaging people in her roster of talents helps lower the barrier for entry. Perhaps the most exciting example for Angel so far was a woman in her late 60s, whom she's known for 7 years, and was very resistant to case management. But then she met Synergy. Now she wants to work with me, Angel said. As long as the pig is right there, she will answer my questions. She will do the work with me. She's moving forward because of Synergy. The pig's name is a reflection of what she offers. There is a synergy to it all, Angel explained. I just wanted her to ground folks and remind them that there's always more to life and more to be than what is right now. For my homeless clients, they aren't defined by who they are now. This is just one piece of their life. They deserve to be somewhere better. Angel and other experts who work with homeless populations know that pets are a lifeline for unhoused people, providing stability and support that would otherwise be overlooked. In fact, prioritizing unhoused people's relationships with their pets has been a proven model of success. In California, a pilot project that made homeless shelters pet-friendly had major outcomes, allowing over 4,000 people to keep their pets while getting support, and encouraging 886 people to move into permanent housing with their pets, a higher success rate than the statewide average for California. Angel knows Synergy won't end homelessness, but she does believe her companionship will help people get one step closer to relief. And then, when she's not working with clients, Angel uses the pig as a way to talk to the general public about the work she does to end homelessness. She's working to make the world a better place, Angel said of the pig, in her own way. That is adorable and awesome. To everybody with the H3 project, as well as everybody involved with ending homelessness, and to Synergy, the little 5-pound Juliana pig, who's doing her best in her own way to help those in need. Cheers. All right. We're going to get into our last article of the night, and this one is a Saviors of All Ages article. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. "14-year-old Montana kid rescues a drowning man with his lasso and rodeo skills. Luckily, I caught him first try." This was published on July 23rd of 2026 to good.is by Eric Barnes. A teenager is being praised for pulling off a heroic act straight out of an American Western film. The boy saved a man from drowning by lassoing him like a cowboy. 14-year-old Jory Thomas was just visiting with his grandparents on their campground near Yellowstone River. Jory had his lariat to practice the roping skills he'd been learning for the past year. That's when he heard cries for help from the nearby river. "We all heard 'help, help,'" Jory said to KTVQ News. "There's 2 or 3 people floating down the river, one hanging onto the cooler, and he wasn't saying anything." A raft carrying 4 people crashed into a bridge pillar, knocking them all into the Yellowstone River. While 3 of them made it to shore, the 4th was drifting quickly downstream as he clung to a cooler. Jory emptied his pockets and grabbed his lariat, immediately rushing to help. "This current was pretty fast then, and he was moving pretty quickly," said Jory. "Only thing I could focus on was helping him get out of the water, because I didn't want to see anyone go in front of me." Jory had been practicing using a lariat to rope a dummy on his parents' ranch nearly every afternoon when the weather was fair. Ready for action, Jory ran into the shallower part of the river, getting chest deep into the water. Letting his training do the work, Jory took his 12-foot lariat and lassoed the drowning man. "Luckily, I caught him first try," Jory said. Jory slowly pulled the man to shore as first responders arrived. "I felt pretty good afterwards that I knew he was okay and was out of the water," he said. "God was basically putting me in the place of all this. God was just telling me all of this at the time and saying, 'Go get him. You got it. And I believe in you.'" Jory's family was proud but not too surprised that he leapt into action. To them, being helpful was just Jory being Jory, and I absolutely love hearing that. "His first instinct always is to help other people. He's always been that way," said Sandy, Thomas's grandmother. "The whole community is proud of him. We've had a lot of feedback, but that's Jory. He's always there to help somebody else." "We'll be in town at the grocery store, and you'll see an elderly person," Jace, Jory's father, told Cowboy State Daily. "They can't pack the groceries, and he never says a word. He goes over and gets their groceries and packs them out. That's just who he is." The local police also praised Jory for taking action. "My opinion, Jory saved the individual's life. 100%, said Sweetgrass County Sheriff Alan Ronneberg. "Had Jory not acted, I believe the chances of this individual making it to shore were very slim. Jory saw another in trouble and acted, not for himself, but for another," Ronneberg added. "Jory is a lesson for all of us this day and age, and showed us what is courageous and right." To 14-year-old Jory Thomas, who heard a person in need of help, went out into the Yellowstone River with a lariat and lassoed that person and brought them to safety. You are a savior of all ages. Cheers. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. 7 amazing articles across the gamut and all of our categories, so really cool stuff. Thank you all again for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube channel. Again, we're usually live every Sunday, and our next episode will be on Sunday, August 30th of 2026. We encourage participation, so by all means, if you feel inclined, you can send us suggestions for news brews, shoutouts, news quotes, and especially good news articles that we can present on future episodes of our program. If possible, if you send a bunch of articles, please spread them out across our 4 major categories, which again were science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, and wholesome notes, the really nice ones that we like to end on. You can message us on Facebook or Instagram or email us at somebudgetstudios@gmail.com. Links are in the description of the video. Feel free to like, subscribe, or comment on our content across all the major platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, where we actually just debuted our 100th TikTok of 2026. We've been getting really good stuff on TikTok. It's crazy. All of it gets good news out and good news and joy out into the algorithms. Please no SEO improvement advertisements. We're not interested. It's because all of you interacting with our content, that's what's driving Nick's News, and we continue to grow. And it is wonderful and fantastic of all of you, all of the help that you give us with growing and getting our stuff out there, getting this good news out there, because it's so hard to find sometimes if you don't know about these sites and you're watching the mainstream media and they just bombard us over and over and over with everything bad, and there's no respite. So thanks to all of you, we continue to grow, and it's amazing. I can't thank you all enough, really. So, as always, thank you again. I love you all. Have a great night, and I will play us out.